Sometimes, though, it's difficult to know what the problem is. And this is especially the case in places where it looks like a scribe did not accidentally make a mistake, but where a scribe intentionally changed the text. There are passages that look like scribes have intentionally modified the texts that they were copying. Let me give you some of the more important textual variations that are quite significant for interpreting the New Testament, where it really matters what the original text was, because you have different forms of the text, and depending on which form of the text you have, the text reads very differently. Possibly the most famous is the story, well-known story, in John chapter 8 of Jesus and the adulteress. This could well be the best-known event in the life of Jesus. It certainly makes it into every Jesus movie ever made. Even Mel Gibson's Passion, which is about Jesus' last hours, includes one of the backflashes is about the potential stoning of the adulteress. You know the story. Jesus is teaching in the temple, and the scribes and Pharisees bring a woman to him. They say to him, this woman was caught in the act of adultery. According to the law of Moses, she's to be stoned to death. What do you say? Jesus kneels down on the ground and starts writing in the dirt. And then they keep questioning him. He looks up and he says, "Let the one without sin among you be the first to cast a stone at her." Then he continues writing, and they eventually start leaving, apparently because they realize their own guilt. They leave one by one, and Jesus looks up. There's nobody there except for the woman. He looks up and says to the woman, "Is there no one left to condemn you?" And she says, "No, Lord, no one." He says, "Neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more." Well, it's a very interesting story. It shows Jesus' kind of cleverness at getting out of a trap, because he can't very well say, "Don't stone her," because then he'd be saying, "Don't follow the law of Moses," which he can't say. On the other hand, he can't say stone her, because then that violates his teachings of mercy and forgiveness. And so he's kind of stuck in this situation. They've trapped him, but he figures a way out of the trap. Very clever story. There are odd features of this story. For one thing, if this woman is caught in the act of adultery, where's the man? The law says you're supposed to stone both of them to death. Well, so I mean, it's got some odd characteristics in it. What's most odd, though, is that the story was not originally found in the Gospel of John. It now occurs in John chapter 8, but in fact, in the oldest manuscripts of the Gospel of John, the story does not occur at all. Moreover, in some manuscripts, the story occurs in the Gospel of Luke. In a number of manuscripts, the story occurs, but it occurs with a kind of an asterisk, indicating that the scribe doesn't think that it's original. And when you read the story in Greek, the writing style is completely different from the writing style of the intervening of the rest of the Gospel of John. It's a different writing style. And when you take the story out of the Gospel of John and you read from where it begins to where it ends and just leave it out, the flow of the story of John makes perfect sense, much better sense than it does with the story in it. What's going on here? Apparently, some scribe knew of this story, had heard this story, and decided to write it out in the margin of a manuscript. And some later scribes saw this marginal note and thought it belonged in the text, and so stuck it in the text. Later scribes then copied that manuscript. The oldest manuscripts don't have the story, but the manuscripts used by the King James Bible translators, those manuscripts did have the story. That's why it came into the English language, because the King James translator were using late manuscripts that were not our best manuscripts, and so they reproduced the story even though it was not originally found in the Gospel of John. It's not actually a story that was found in the original canon of the New Testament.